So I am glad you guys are here physically. I know some of you were in this building, so it was safe, but you went through the rain, so I appreciate that. We got lots of folks online and coming in online, which is great. So I want to introduce Jackie Green. She is one of the two all-female co-hosts of the first all-female radio show in West Michigan, and so she'll talk about that. She is, as her banner clearly states, the most recent Mrs. America also. So she's here really just to talk to us about her life experiences, both, in business. I mean, DJ, this is part of our Women's History Month. Part of the reason I asked her to come and talk is because she is a female working in a male-dominated field. I mean, there's lots of women in radio, but they're certainly not the majority still. So she's just here to talk to us about her life experiences with that and some of the other things that have sort of got her to where she is today. So I'm going to turn it over to Jackie.
Thank you so much. So as she said, my name is Jackie Green. You might see me around as Jackie Blankenship as well. That's my married name. I've been in radio for a while now, about 11 years. I went to Ferris State University where I studied in applied speech communication. And then, right from there, I started interning. I interned at the Free Beer and Hot Wings morning show out of Grand Rapids on WGRD, if anyone's ever heard of that show. I was there for a few years. I did middays, I did nights, I did pretty much every shift you can do in radio before I transitioned into news. And I was a television news reporter for a few years. We then had a baby. My life went upside down, and I got back into radio from there, where I was afternoons on 105.3 Hot FM, eventually turning into mornings with my co-host Rachel Gray. We host the Gray and Green Show, our last names, and we are in fact the first two-woman morning show in West Michigan, possibly the whole state. There is another one that sounds like they're starting in Detroit soon, also from the company I work with, Cumulus Media, which is really cool to know that we kind of started a trend where they're like giving more women an opportunity to do something that's typically seen as like a man's job. Now, I kind of got started speaking and doing this after I won Mrs. America because a lot of people had questions about this whole pageant thing and about my past. Have you done this your whole life? What is your platform? And it kind of had me sharing my personal story and my journey, which really took me not just to being Mrs. America, but it took me to getting my job in broadcasting. And it starts when I was just a kid. So it kind of revolves around confidence. Confidence is something you're not inherently born with. I truly believe it's something that's instilled in you through your parents or through your life experiences. And confidence, self-confidence, whether you're good at something or not, is going to be the key in how you succeed in everything in life. If you don't believe you can do it, you can't. And as corny and obnoxious as that sounds, it's 100% the truth. If I think I'm going to fall, I'm probably going to fall. And I did not have any confidence growing up. I had zero, if I'm being honest. Because I was a little bit different. When I was 6 years old, it was diagnosed that I was born with complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. Now, typically, I would ask everyone to raise their hands if they know what the term intersex means, but I can't see very many people. You've heard of the term intersex, raise your hand. I'm going to see if I can
do this. I raised the hand for the room.
Yes! One person raised their hand, and it's Jessica. So for those that might not know what intersex means, it's basically an umbrella term we use to describe over 140 different ways a baby can be born that might not meet the gender stereotypes of male or female. So in the 70s, we came up with the idea that XY chromosomes means male, and that's how that works. And we have chromosomes for female, and we started defining gender by those definitions. But it didn't include, as I said, 160 different conditions a child can be born with that almost falls in between. So when I was 6 years old, they did a blood test on me for some work I was having done. It came back that while I was a healthy little baby girl, I had XY chromosomes. That was obviously puzzling because I'm a girl, and my parents didn't know what to do with it. And the doctors immediately told my family, something's wrong with your daughter. She has XY chromosomes. She's not, something's wrong with her. So we immediately went in with this idea that I had something inherently wrong with me. And as a 6-year-old sitting in the doctor's office, you hear that and you think, I'm dying. Something's wrong with me. I didn't feel like I was dying. I didn't feel like anything was wrong with me. All I was, something is wrong with you. Through a series of tests, it was discovered that I had complete androgen insensitivity syndrome, which is one of those over 100 conditions in that intersex umbrella tree. Now, my condition basically means this, if I'm going to break it down into layman's terms so you can understand it. When I'm like an embryo and I'm in my mom's womb and I'm swimming around or whatever you do in there, all the hormones wash over you to decide ultimately what your biological gender is going to be. When the testosterone washed over me, I had XY chromosomes, which typically would be seen in males. When the hormones washed over me, my body has, for lack of a better word, an allergy to testosterone. It won't respond to it in any way. And testosterone, men have it and women have it. It's what grows our body hair. It helps grow muscles. It's bone growth, bone health, all of that. So my body says, nope, we don't want the testosterone. That's not going to work for me. So instead, it converted all the testosterone into usable estrogen. What then it did was, on the outside, I developed externally female. My mom gave birth to me and I was a little baby girl, but on the inside, I didn't have the testosterone levels or the estrogen levels to build an internal reproductive system. That means your fallopian tubes, your uterus, your ovaries, I didn't have any of that. It was like an empty abdomen with 2 internal testes that were creating my estrogen. And they were both in my lower abdomen. So they discovered I had this condition. I was a female with XY chromosomes, but I couldn't have children. I don't have ovaries. I don't have a uterus. I cannot have a period. I don't grow body hair. And they tell my parents with me in the room at 6, 7 years old that something's wrong and we're going to need to operate, because it is not normal for a little girl to have internal testes, to have balls, if I can be clear. So my parents, they don't know what to do, and they say, well, what's going to happen if she has these? And the doctors in the time, not to age myself, but it was 1990, said, you have to get them out. That's your only option. Well, that was when I was 6, and they had decided we're going to wait till she's 15 years old to remove these internal testes, because that way I can grow up without artificial hormones, go through puberty without artificial hormones, and then have them removed. That was the idea at the time. But what that was, take my confidence, because most kids, they're happy, confident kids just by nature, and plummeted it. I sat around thinking about the upcoming surgery when I was 15 years old every day. The anxiety, I had childhood anxiety like no one's business. It's all I thought about. And at the same time, I was being told by multiple doctors who like to use me as a lab rat because they'd never seen a child like me, and my parents and my family, to never tell anybody because I would be ostracized. It's not normal. I had a doctor when I was 8 years old tell me and my family that I was a hermaphrodite. That is a term we don't use. That is a sensationalized term that doesn't apply to humans, and it's something you would say to offend someone, frankly. And that was said to me when I was only 8 years old, but everything I saw in the mirror was that of a typical little girl. So I had no confidence. And when you don't have confidence, you don't try things. I started struggling in school at a very early age, 4th, 5th grade. My grades were in the toilet because I didn't even try. I was almost scared to succeed because I felt inherently wrong. I was going to a church that was fueling me with this man and woman stuff that, God makes man and God makes woman. What am I? Why do I exist? And I was having those thoughts at 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, always remembering that on my 15th birthday, not long after, I would be having a major surgery that I can't talk about to remove these organs where my confidence level was. By 15 years old, they bring me back to actually a university hospital, which university hospitals can be great things. But when you're a minor at a university hospital, you're basically signing your rights away for these student doctors to help learn, because it's a learning, teaching environment. So not only at 15, the most vulnerable time personally in my life, I don't know about you guys, it was a rough time. I was now getting my internal testes removed. I have to be naked in front of a doctor for the first time, and there's 4 student doctors, like 25-year-old dudes, in the room. Nice. This was a dark time for me. I have them removed. I wake up. The surgery went swimmingly. I still don't understand why I had to have it, but it's done. I go to leave and they hand me a prescription and they said, okay, Jackie, you got to take this. The next 2 weeks, you're going to go through what we call early menopause. I didn't even know what menopause was. I was 15. And I said, what's that mean? And they said, you're going to have night sweats. You'll probably get some hot flashes. You might be irritable. And they list off this slew of horrible things that apparently are going to happen to me that my mom's going through right now. So I'm like, okay, how long do I take this medication? And they said, you will be on that the rest of your life. That is now your estrogen because we just took what was producing your estrogen. That was very confusing to me at 15. Why did we take them if they were producing my estrogen that made me look and feel and act the way I do right now? No one at the time could give me a straight answer other than girls don't have testes. I mean, they're in my abdomen, you can't see them. And even if they weren't, who cares? This is my body. But all I was told was it was wrong and it was not something you should have as a girl. So I started to kind of bury my head in the sand on the whole topic. As I was getting older and I'm in high school, my grades were in the toilet like they were growing up. Nothing really went my way. I wasn't good at anything. I kind of tried to not succeed. It's like I actively made a point not to get good grades, not to do well in cross country, not to do good in the track team. And my parents were at a loss because they didn't understand why my confidence was so low that I was scared to even try. I finally got to a point going into my last year of high school, almost convinced myself that none of that had happened and I was ready to move past it. And when you put something in the back of your head and you decide, I'm going to ignore it, you can get by for a while, faking it till you make it. But that is not a healthy way to manage stress, and that is not a healthy way to manage your emotions. It may be working in the short term, which it did for me, but it will come back and bite you. And that's exactly what happened for me. Going into my senior year, I started working harder at cross country, and I decided I want to go to Ferris State University and I want to run on the cross country team. So I worked my butt off. I got top 25 in the state that year. I ran all summer. I worked and worked and worked, and I did it. I made it to where the coach said, yeah, we're going to take you on the team. I had a scholarship and I was going to go run cross country. I was pretty confident. My confidence was coming back, and in turn, my grades were going up and things were just looking better for me overall. But there was one thing I never thought about, the fact that I was different. I erased it from my mind and I never spoke about it. Now, going into my freshman year of college, especially if you're an athlete, they make you have a physical on file. My mom was a little nervous for me to go get this physical because she didn't know what it entailed. And I had a history, not like my friend, us growing up, that because I was different, I was wrong. So they sent me back to the college where I'd had this university. It's a big one in Ann Arbor, if you guys want to guess what it is. I went up there and I was meeting with the doctor. Now, this is the same doctor that operated on me so many, 4 years ago. And I hadn't seen her since. And she asked me how I was doing. She asked me how the medication was. And I told her, I'm doing really good. Things are great. I'm running cross country in college. I've got a boyfriend. Things are awesome. I'm confident as can be. And she's right there, Jackie, I need to have a serious talk with you. And I'm like, what? Something's wrong with me again? What's going on? And she tells me, we're going to fill out this physical. And we need to keep this condition you have between you and me. Because I would hate for your coach to find out and never allow you to race again. That stopped me dead in my tracks because I couldn't understand why they wouldn't want me to race. All I know is this body, and I'm at the time an 18-year-old girl. If anything, I have a disadvantage from my peers because I create a lack of hormones and I create absolutely no testosterone. So, which is the hormone that would typically be seen to make you faster and stronger and better at athletics. So I said, okay, I won't tell, but why would that matter? And they said, if they see your chromosomes, you will be banned from the NCAA. That is what she told me. That was going into my first year of college. Confidence is back down in the toilet. And as I said in the beginning of this, confidence in yourself and thinking I can do something is the key to success. And it is. I went in coming off a great senior year of high school and I ran like complete human garbage. Every meet was worse than the last. I was one of the last 2 people on the whole team. And the coach basically said I could stick around if I wanted, but I either needed to work harder or figure out what was holding me back. Well, what was holding me back was the idea that I wasn't right, that something was inherently wrong with me because of this intersex condition that I couldn't even control. But I couldn't tell anybody because I'm being told from every person in my life that does know that it's wrong to have this. So I decide once again to put it in the back of my head, and I'm not going to think about it. And it started working again. I'm training harder, I'm forgetting, and I'm letting myself just move on from it. And I'm running better. And next thing you know, I'm running very fast, top 5 on the team. I ended up getting to go to the NCAA National Championship in Pennsylvania and run cross country and represent Ferris State. And I had a lot of success, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I was scared to put myself out there and do what I actually wanted to do because of fear that I would be outed as someone wrong or different or not woman enough due to this condition I wasn't allowed to talk about. Fast forward again to me, I get engaged to my now husband. We met at a Bennigan's where we worked together in college, and I just thought my life couldn't get better. And I went back to that doctor for a checkup right before my wedding because I'm a glutton for punishment. Here is the reality. And this is something that I tell everyone in my life that'll listen. If you're going to a medical provider, no matter what it's for, just your health care or a serious issue, and they're making you feel a certain way that's not good, that's affecting your mental health, you have the right to go somewhere else. You can go to a different doctor. You don't need to see that provider, and that is your. So I went back to this doctor who I'd been going to, hadn't seen in 4 or 5 years, and I just said, I need a checkup. I haven't been since I was 19. I'm getting married. I'm 26 now, and I just wanted to do a checkup, I guess, because I had become so afraid to go see any other doctor because I was told they'll never they'll never know what this condition you have is, and you don't even bother going. It won't be worth your time, and it'll be upsetting, is what I had been told my whole life. So I went back to her. I tell her, I'm getting married now. And she says, oh boy, well, let's talk about that. And I said, okay. And I'll never forget it. She got her hand on her knee. She's sitting down cross-legged. This woman is very tall. And she gets in my face and says, sweetie, does he know? And I said, does he know what? She said, that you're really you're a boy. You're a man. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm not. I have XY chromosomes, but I'm not. This is me. I've done nothing to be the person I am. This is how I am naturally. This is who I am. And I'm not any different than anyone else other than I can't have children. And she said, well, this is the kind of thing you need to tell him. He deserves to know this before you get married. And then it was in my head. So I go back home and I start self-sabotaging my own relationship. I'm self-sabotaging this engagement to the man that I was deeply in love with. And he could tell something wasn't right since I came home. And finally, we had one of those blowouts where everything came to a head. And he says, why do you feel the need to be so aggressive lately towards me? Because that's how I deal with stress management, is yelling at people. And I finally let it all out and told him, I can't have children, but this is my condition. I have XY chromosomes. The internal testes were removed when I was 15, and I spilled my guts. And he said, why would I care about that? And it kind of was a sigh of relief. Maybe this isn't such a big deal. So we get married, and one of my dreams was always to compete in pageants. I thought they were cool. I don't know. I had watched them on TV growing up, and I thought doing Miss USA or Miss America would be the coolest thing, but I had already aged out of that, and I was married, and that was never going to be an opportunity for me. So I decided I'm going to try this Mrs. Michigan I had seen. Now, Mrs. Michigan is a state-level pageant to go to Mrs. America. Mrs. America is the oldest Mrs. pageant in the world. It got started about 70 years ago, and it began as a pageant for wives, and it was like a cooking contest, and they basically gave women these housework chores. Wild. Well, in 1972, it got bought by this family, David and Elaine Marmel, and they decided, what are we doing making housewives compete at cooking? This is stupid, because they could do everything a Miss America can do. And so in the 70s, they bought it and turned it into the modern woman, was their idea. And you compete. You did an evening gown, swimsuit, you had a platform that you were passionate about, and it was just like Miss America, but for married women of all ages, 21 on up. You didn't have to be under 25 years old, and that was their vision and their dream, and we've been going strong ever since then. So in the pageant world, it's a thing. Mrs. America is just like the dream for Mrs. Pageantry. So I signed up for Mrs. Michigan. And everyone's asking me my platform, and I kind of freaked out, and I said, I'm going to make my platform infertility, because I wasn't ready to talk about it. So I went in 2015 and did Mrs. Michigan, and I was talking about infertility. And the judges are asking me all these infertility awareness questions and about IVF cycles and everything else. And I don't know, I had no passion behind it, because even though I can't have children, I knew deep down that's not why I'm here today, and that's not what made me who I am. Because I have different issues than someone who's just can't have children. Frankly, I have a whole backpack of issues that aren't just being infertile. So I get through interview, I thought it went pretty good, and we go on stage, they start to call the top 3 and all that good stuff, runner up. So I was at second place, and I said, okay, at least I got top 2, this is great. And I go, I'm good with that. But the back of my head was I always wanted to go into this pageant. There was a lot of things I wanted to do that I just wasn't chasing, because I still didn't have that confidence that I wanted to chase my dreams. So fast forward again to 2021, and at this point, I'm being pretty open with my friends and family that I have an intersex condition, and I'm not really ashamed of it anymore, and I'm okay talking about it. But the thing is, it's a lot different to write a blog post and hit publish and walk away and let a couple people say mean things while everyone else gives you accolades than it is to talk to someone's face and say, yeah, I had balls. That's me. And it's because you don't know how they're going to react, and it can be jarring. So I go in and I said, I'm going to go to Mrs. Michigan. I'm going to talk about who I really am and what my actual platform is, which is to help little kids and children with my condition or population to not feel like I felt. I wasted so many years of my life because of that one little diagnosis and the way it was presented to me. So I go into the interview room at Mrs. Michigan and I go, I can't do this. And I panicked. I straight was like, no way am I going to talk about this. And at the last minute, right when they asked me what my platform was, I said infertility again and just shot stuff out my butt and went with it. And then once again, back in May 2021, I was first runner up. And it's not really a surprise that you're not going to succeed and win things if you don't believe in yourself. And I clearly didn't believe in myself. I didn't have the courage to even be who I am. So fast forward about 3 months. To about August, September of 2021, I got a call from the woman that owns the Mrs. Michigan system, and she tells me, hey, the woman that had won, who actually, she is undergoing a terrible health scare, and she can't go to Mrs. America. Because of that, you're first runner-up, you get to go. You're now Mrs. Michigan. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the way things just fell in my lap, that's awesome. I'm living on cloud 9. I now host the first 2 female morning show in the state. I now have this title that I've dreamed of. I'm Mrs. Michigan. I can do this. I'm going to Mrs. America. So the whole time at Mrs. America, when I finally get there this past November, all I can think about is just going, and I wanted to make top 15. I had it in my head, if I made top 15, I could retire from this dream of pageantry. And so I go to Mrs. America and I'm doing the whole thing all week long. It's a lot of fun. They keep you in Vegas for like 10 days. You get to interview with all these people and you go on this big stage. And I do the interview portion. And right when I walked in, I sat down with the first judge. They do what's called round robin interview, where you interview with each judge individually for 6 minutes. I sit down with the first judge. He says, all right, tell me about yourself. And I was about to talk about infertility, and I realized you've been held back so much. Your grades, cross country, getting married, getting jobs, trying to get into anything because you won't just tell people about this thing that's in the back of your head. Let's just talk about it. What do you have to lose? You didn't even win your way here. So I literally, at a second's turn, I looked up and said, well, when I was 15, it was discovered I had internal testes and they took them out. And he said, what? And we had this great conversation about how there are all these different ways a baby can be. It's not taught to us, and it's okay to be different. And we need to teach our children that they're perfect the way they are if their body's functioning healthy. And it just was a great conversation. So I stand up, I go to the next judge, and I'm like, that was great. That guy was so supportive. He didn't even care that I have balls. I sit down with the next judge, and I do it again. So then we go through 4 more judges. There was 5 judges total. And I tell all of them my entire story I just told you guys, but in a 5-minute span instead of a 30-minute span. And I get it all out on the table. And then the next day is the finals night where everyone's going to watch us on stage and we're in our gowns and we do an on-stage question if you're top 6. So they call the top 15 and I'm in it. And I'm like, holy, my goal was made. Being me worked. I'm top 15. I did it. Then they narrow it to the top 6. Person call, the second person they call, and they go through the lineup and it's everyone but me. And I'm looking at my husband in the audience and I'm like, it's okay. I'm like literally going, it's okay. Because all I could think was, you did it. You faced your biggest fear. You looked someone in the eye and took your biggest weakness and made it what is different about you, and that you're okay with it. Because if you're okay with it, most likely other people are going to be okay with it. And that's what I did. So I knew I could leave feeling good. Then the 6th name to be called was me. So now I have to answer an onstage question. They draw a thing out of a fishbowl. And if you've ever watched a pageant on live TV, you've probably seen the women that draw a question and they're like, world peace. And then they just sound like morons. That is my greatest fear in this. But luckily I'm a public speaker, so I knew I wouldn't fall too flat. So I draw a question, and out of sheer luck, it said, if you could take one thing in your life and change it, what would it be? And I said, frankly, I wouldn't change anything in my life, because that's why I'm standing here, or all those little things in my life that were a mistake led to me being here right now. But if I could change anything, it'd be the fact that we're operating on intersex children. And I explained on that stage, on the same stage Elvis performed at in the 70s in Vegas, to a huge audience, that I was born with internal testes, they were removed, I have XY chromosomes, and no one wants to talk about it. But other children are being born that way, and we need education on this. And I'm done. And I think, you know what? Not a lot of people, it was kind of quiet after I said it. I felt this, ooh, that lady just talked about her balls on stage in front of everybody. When we get down to crowning, though, they start naming off in 5th place and 4th place, and they're down to the final 2, and I'm in it. And I'm thinking, if I get first runner up again, it's okay, because at least I got 2nd place being myself and living my truth. And I can go away mentally happy with that. So when they called my name as the winner, I about shit my pants. Sorry to be crude. But it's the truth. I just couldn't believe it, that being me was actually wasn't that big of a deal. Where I'm going with all of this is, this isn't everyone's dream. This is not very many people's dream, if I'm being honest, but it was mine. And I wasn't gonna ever get it by pretending to be the woman I'm not. By pretending, oh, I support women who are having infertility issues, and never talking about my dark passenger here, which is the fact that I had a really hard childhood, and I really still struggle every day with mental health due to the fact that I'm different. I get it. Not a lot of women have XY chromosomes. Not a lot of women have no internal reproductive system or had internal testes removed. But when you embrace your differences and you can tell yourself, hey, I'm truly okay with it, and come to terms with it, yeah, this is who I am and it's not going to change. This is who I am and I need to be okay with it. Then you can succeed in a lot of things you might not think you could succeed. If you have any questions about intersex conditions, about me, about radio, about getting into all that, I'm happy to answer anything.
Cool. Anyone? I mean, I'll host, she can hear you guys if you have questions in here. And then Jackie, you should be able to see the chat if people are putting questions up on the chat. Yeah,
I can see the chat, and nothing's too personal. I don't care. I'll answer anything.
Everyone's just sitting here going, yeah, go ahead.
I know.
Was it really necessary to have the surgery?
Could you hear her?
I'm sorry, you guys cut out for a second.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of intermittent connection issues. She asked, was it actually necessary for you to have that surgery?
That is a great question. I'm glad you asked it, because I work with a group called Interact Advocates now that work to end unnecessary intersex surgeries, because it was found after I had it that it's actually not at all necessary, and it's a vanity thing. So for my condition, you can't see it. It's in my abdomen. And just like a woman with atypical chromosomes would go to the doctor and have a pap smear and all that done, I could go and have ultrasound and check and make sure they were okay. And I would have been, I've met women now that I'm an adult with my condition who opted out of surgery and are perfectly healthy and strong.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions? They're all just eyeballing each other.
I know. It's like, we didn't know this lady was going to come in and talk about her balls.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just appreciative that you're telling your story,
that it is something that needs to be talked about. So I'm just very appreciative of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's really therapeutic for me at this point in my life to talk about it, because I can still get, like, no one is immune from anxiety and depression. And things that are different about you, they can really like gloom you. And I can still fall into those, and talking about it is just great for me. I enjoy educating others on it because so few people know about it. And I feel like if I tell enough people and then they come into contact with someone who might have it, it might change the life of that person.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm really appreciative to have you. I mean, because this is one of the things that I do teach in my classes, and almost no one has heard of this. You know, it's
crazy.
Nobody's heard of it.
Yeah, right. The lack of knowledge I get on it, even now that it's been a little more, the problem is it's been sensationalized so much. So you'll see books like Middlesex that came out, who was written by a guy with no connection to anyone with an intersex condition. And that's what people think of when they think of someone born with this. But they're, like I said, there are like over 100 conditions you can have. Some, right. Yeah, they're probably visible. Others are not.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's very helpful. Do you have any... I see something in the chat, but I can't see what's in there. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions about radio or anything?
Yeah, I got time for radio questions if you want. Yeah. I've been in radio too long, and I've worked at too many stations.
She's been around in the radio scene. Yeah. So.
And TV.
I don't know how male dominated it is. I don't.
Oh yeah, that's a great comment actually. Radio is usually like a boys club, and there's not a lot of women that work in it. So if you listen to your typical morning radio show, a lot of times what you'll think of is the male host who's got the jokes and runs the board, and then there's always a woman that works with him who laughs at all his jokes and tells the Hollywood news. And that's kind of always the way we've done it. And so it's not like ever looked at to be like, well, what if we move the woman to the board and have a woman co-host? Like, why do we have to have? They just never done it that way. When I approached my boss, I basically got to a point where I said, I'm thinking of quitting. I'm really unhappy in afternoons, being cut off. I'm not getting a lot of time to talk, and my dream is to do mornings. So I need you to help me here. And he said, okay, well, what do you want to do? We have a morning show. I'm like, I want you to put me on with her. I think we'd be really funny. And I think we could talk about some important things. And his immediate reaction was, do you know how to run the soundboard? Of course I know how to run the soundboard. I work here. But they don't ever have women do it. So it's almost like showing people that we can do it. Not that we should have to, but we do. That's how the world works. Show them that we can, and then it's going to start happening more, hopefully.
Cool. Bryce, were you going to ask something?
Yeah. I was wondering, how do you combat criticism?
I don't know if you heard. He wanted to know, how do you combat criticism?
Yeah. So in the beginning, when I started talking about this, it was really hard. People would say horrible things, uneducated things, and a lot of people, a lot of uneducated people want to compare it to the battle the trans community faces every day. And while I am happy to align myself with the LGBTQI community, if it's going to help someone, my life and my upbringing are not the same as someone who is transgender. And I think a lot of people want to turn anything different into politics. And that's something that I found on social media. When I share my story, I'm immediately getting bombarded with these people who don't know what they're talking about. So the only thing I can do is let them comment, because all it's going to do is get more shares and more views on my story. And if you want to be ignorant and think the way you think, I did what I can do. I told you the truth.
Yeah, and that's it. I'm actually glad you asked that and that you brought that up, because I think there is a lot of confusion. Say intersex and trans, those are very different situations and very different
situations. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and what's hard is some people and some doctors still look at intersex as like a birth defect or a something wrong with you. And that's, I think, the biggest hurdle we're trying to climb right now, is that our bodies are functioning perfectly fine. So there's nothing wrong with us. We're just different. And because the majority of people are one way, it's hard for doctors and the medical community to wrap their minds around, well, there can be more than one way.
Right. Right.
They can't think outside the box.
Yeah, they can't think outside the box, she's saying, which is,
No, yeah, it was, it's sad to say this, but it wasn't that long ago I decided to try to go to a doctor here in Grand Rapids. I wanted to get on a new hormone because I'm stuck taking hormones the rest of my life because of this. And it was maybe right before COVID hit, so 2020. I went to a doctor's office in Grand Rapids and I had an older physician who asked me about, what's going on. When's the date of your last period? The worst question. And I said, never had a period. And they said, whoa, okay, well, why is that? And I had to give them the whole spiel. When he went to go look up my records, they could not find my surgery or anything about my condition in any of their records because it was never released from the hospital I originally went to because they didn't want people to know. So when I called to ask why my physicians and my care teams can't find this information about me, like what if there was an emergency and for some reason they needed to know? They said, well, that's the kind of thing we only release upon request from you because not a lot of people want that out there. And it's that kind of mentality is just so mind-boggling to me.
right. I did, while you were talking, I actually had a question. You mentioned, speaking of hiding the records, and that when you were doing cross-country, that if they had found out you're chromosomally male, you wouldn't be allowed to run. Is that in fact the rule? Or was your doctor mistaken?
The rule in sports, at least, okay, when I ran cross country, it was 2004 to 2009. And so I'm not 100% sure what the rule was then, if I'm being honest. But it's mostly about competing at your hormone levels and your testosterone levels. So that's why right now the big thing in the news is Leah Thomas, the swimmer, who's transgender and competing in the NCAA swimming. What they do to allow her to swim is test her hormone levels. She has to be below testosterone to be allowed to compete. And that's what they do for intersex individuals. Now, the difference is she's on hormone blockers because she wants to be female, and that's what she's doing. I'm not here to debate whether that's right or wrong, but an intersex person who might produce too much testosterone, like Caster Semenya, if you've heard of her, she's a runner. Caster Semenya is biologically female. So for all intents and purposes, she is more female than me. She has ovaries or uterus. She has female pattern chromosomes, but she has a difference in her development that causes her glands to produce too much testosterone, way too much, which makes her very, very strong and a little bit more masculine. But every other test on her, she is female, 100% female. They force her onto hormone blockers to change her natural body so she doesn't compete against women at her level. And they think that's fair. But in my personal opinion, as someone with an intersex condition, I don't find that fair at all. We don't do things, we don't change Michael Phelps' wingspan because it's unusually long to compete against men. And that's what they're doing to her because she's different. And that's really the bigger difference. So what they do is they typically measure your hormones, and that's how they decide where you compete.
Okay. Well, that's actually really helpful. I mean, I know there's a lot of controversy right now about how you manage transgender folks in sports and competitions. So
it's a fine line to walk, and it's hard to. Yeah. Without the proper education, no one can make the right call.
Well, we really appreciate you having you here. If nobody else has any questions, we will let you get back to your regularly scheduled life. But we appreciate you taking the time out here for us. And
no problem. Thanks for having me.
Been super helpful. I think it's been super informative. It's definitely a topic that most people don't know much about, so I'm really glad to have another voice here available to educate folks about it. So
thank
you very much for your time.
Of course.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.